Is that better? Right. You say better.
All right. So, so Leanne, you're not with us. You're still.
Well, let's go.
No. All right. So, if you go out and perhaps come back in again. Yep. Done. All right. So, draft submission on accessible streets regulatory package. Have we got staff to speak to this one? Are there any introductory comments?
Richard Osborne here, Councillor Turner. I can give a brief introduction to it, as well as Nick Lovett being on the line.
Yep.
So just as a quick overview to the paper, Accessible Streets is a regulatory package put out by the Crown for land transport rules to create a national framework clarifying the types of vehicles and devices that are allowed on the footpaths and shared paths. We had a virtual workshop on this issue on Thursday the 16th of April. The elected representatives were supportive of the draft submission prepared by staff, with the only difference being around cycling on the footpaths, whereby the majority of councillors attending the workshop supported an age limit for cycling on footpaths rather than a speed limit. So a revised submission was circulated last night reflecting that direction. So that's just a brief overview of what it is and the reason why a revised submission was submitted late last night. Nick Lovett's also on the line, who prepared the submission, and we're both happy to answer any questions.
That's great, thank you. So let's move to questions in that case. Pauline. We can't hear you, unfortunately. You've got the same problem that Leanne had. So are there, in the absence of Pauline being able to speak to us at the moment, are there any other people that have got questions? Sam?
Yeah, just a quick one, Richard. Did we give any thought to how we would enforce an age as opposed to a speed?
Perhaps one for Nick, but yeah, it's a good question, and that's where it gets very tricky. Both would be difficult to enforce because the police probably won't want to spend a lot of time on enforcing these sorts of things, and you know, how does a member of the public or anyone else for that matter determine whether someone's going 15 or 20 k's an hour on a cycle, or whether they're 12 or 13? So that's where it gets tricky, and you're really relying on a good submission, a good marketing and education campaign. One thing is the meal needs the and feel off.
Sorry, Richard,
We can't hear you, Richard. This is becoming very problematic, unfortunately. I don't know whether there's another staff member who's able to answer the question, or whether Richard needs to go out and come back in again, or quite what the solution's going to be here.
I could attempt to follow on where Richard left off, if everyone
that
can hear
would be
me.
helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So, following what Richard was saying about what the intent is here for these enabling frameworks to be built through these rule changes. So the status quo right now is it's very binary and definitive around what can and can't happen. You know, there's a cycle has its own legal definition, and a bike lane has its own legal definition, and you know, they can't be ridden on the footpath under certain circumstances. And so all of these rules combined together, creating a framework in which it's very clear that pedestrians have priority in all these circumstances. You know, all these devices, bicycles, scooters, must give way and give care and utmost care and consideration to pedestrians and vulnerable users. And rather than sort of having these binary definitions around who has right of way and who shouldn't be there, they're creating this give way framework, and underpinning that is going to be, like Richard was saying, a very large communications, educations, marketing effort to underscore the fact that pedestrians are vulnerable users and that everyone needs to take care and give consideration to let them have right of way in a number of circumstances, not just on the foot. So the submission is we thought that very
Sorry, I can't hear again. So,
I able to be heard?
Andrew, you're
Come on, put some money in the account.
It's Joe here. Excuse me, do you want to just take a 5-minute adjournment and we'll just check we can get everyone back on the line?
I'll reintroduce the meeting.
Okay. All yours.
Welcome back, everyone. Do apologise. We're having a few technical hitches today, but we'll get there. We're dealing with the item number 18, the draft submission on Accessible Streets Regulatory Package. We'd had a few questions asked of one of our senior staff, and I'm just going to hand back to him to complete the questions, the answers to the questions. Sorry, Richard.
Apologies. I had to log on and log back in again, so I missed the question. Was that the one
Right.
from Councillor McDonald, or did we move on from there?
Councillor McDonald's fine, and I can't recall who was asking the question because I was only logging back in myself. I don't know if Nick Lovett's come back on.
Yes, can you hear me?
Nick, would you like to finish the answer that you were giving just as you were sounding out?
Sure, I'll try and be brief while we've got the connection. The premise is to shift away from, these very hard and fast binary rules that we have at the moment around footpaths and bicycle lanes, and move towards a more education-based framework and building courtesy through being clear around vulnerability and hierarchy. So that's why the Ministry have chosen a speed limit rather than an age limit, because that again moves us towards that kind of binary hard and fast. A 12-year-old is okay, a 13-year-old is not. They're sort of saying context, please be careful, please give way, and that's ultimately what we're trying to achieve with the rule changes.
I think I understand the reason why they would want to go down that pathway, but the reason that I just had a question mark over it was that, we've got a 30k limit applying in this central city area, and, it's kind of deliberately around the core. And although the cars, can see very clearly that, with the signage that they have to slow down, we still have cyclists operating as if they're on a speedway, just in the cycle lanes, but also on the footpaths, especially shared footpaths. I spent a lot of time walking through, the down Ralston Ave, for example, by Botanic Gardens there, and a bike coming up behind you, whipping along at what must be close to 30 k's, if not over 30 k's, even in those areas, it can be pretty frightening for people. So I'm just wondering whether in those slowdown areas for cars, we want to be giving a clearer message to cyclists that they've got to be part of the slowdown too, that this is a calm street area and they're in a shared space and they have to be very mindful of that.
Yeah, what the rule framework enables is for the local authorities to set other speed limits in areas like the CBD as well. So shared paths, there is legal to state what the speed limit should be on a shared path. A shared path on Rolleston Ave or on Durham Street, for instance, has the same speed limit as the adjacent roadway. So in the CBD it's 30, but on Horse Road it might be 80 kilometers an hour. So these frameworks enable up those speed signs, and they'll have legal meaning.
But you wouldn't want it to be the same. You wouldn't.
Sorry, I didn't catch the end of the question.
Sorry, just I thought you were saying that you could match the speed limit on the shared footpath as it is on the road. You wouldn't want somebody travelling on a bicycle at 30k on a shared pathway, even if the roadway's 30. You want to see a general dropping of the speed overall to match the sense of a car going from 50 to 30. A bike going from 30 to staying 30 is not the equivalent sort of calming of the street environment.
Yeah, I mean that's correct. So the status quo is that these speed limits don't really exist, and it's difficult for local authorities to offer definitive guidance around speeds at the moment. Along Rolleston Ave, I think we have a sign that has no legal meaning that says please give way to pedestrians, or please be considerate, or words to that effect. So that the rule changes enable local authorities to set speed limits, do wide communication saying, we want a speed limit of 25 or something on shared paths in the CBD. But the status quo
Don't
at
say
the moment,
25.
or some.
No, I mean
number.
seriously. I mean, I just think having a speed limit doesn't necessarily do it. It's just creating an obligation to the conditions. It's sort of like the limited speed zone or unlimited speed zones. They're just. But anyway, I mean, it's obviously not in people's minds at the moment. They seem to be stuck on the idea that you can put speed limits in place when they won't be enforced. Anyway.
I just maybe say, with respect to the proposals, one thing it does enable is perhaps there is a bit of ambiguity as to where shared paths are installed, what the intent of them is, and there might be security in thinking that this is cycling for me to go along. And of course, there's another use opportunities. What the
I don't think anyone can hear you, Nick. I'm sorry. It's just gone in and out and in and out. So we're not getting a sense of what you're saying.
And here's the big problem that we're having inside. Republicans have more seats to defend.
So, if that sound connection's not all there, I'll maybe hand it back to you, Mike.
Leanne, it sounds like someone has the TV on.
Sorry. Okay, well, I'll go and shut a door, but it's only when I've got my microphone on.
Leanne? Oh.
I was just wondering if Richard Osborne, if you're there, we could still ask questions.
Yes, I'm here, so hopefully.
Hang on, you can't without the mayor being there to listen to the answers.
I was just pre-preparing, that's all.
Yeah, no, that's all good. Let's just wait for Leanne to come back and resume the chair, and then with Richard here, that gives us the ability to do that. That sounds good.
I just wanted to state that this submission has had an extension of time, so there's no reason why we couldn't defer this, because I can't, it's just terrible. There's people cutting in and out, it's hopeless for me. And I've got a different view, so it matters to me.
Are we deferring everything? Why don't people put the questions or something through beforehand? We understand that it's not business as usual, so it's always
Excuse me, let's not have a debate in the middle of a meeting. The truth is that it is the connections that is making very difficult for people to ask and answer questions. And I do apologise about some background noise, but things aren't too good here at the moment. So that's now sorted. So if we could just be a little bit more considerate of the fact that we've got a technology issue here. Now, I don't know whether, and I would be very comfortable with picking, say, or Mike, bringing together a team of 4 or 5 people, the coalition of the willing, if that's okay with everyone around the table. I'm really happy to move that we delegate the final decision to a small group of people led by Mike Davidson, who is the chair of that committee. And if someone would like to second that, and we'll populate it with names, then we can move on.
I'm happy to second that, Leanne, and I'll just email my questions to Mike.
That's fine. And could people advise me if we could just get the list of names of the people who are willing to serve? Can Sarah Templeton? Anyone else? Pauline Cotter?
Pauline. Yeah.
Tim, do you want to go on too?
Yep, I'll go on.
Tim Scandrett? Anyone else? Anne Galloway?
I will.
Who was that?
Melanie.
Melanie Coker. Is that all good? Are people comfortable with that?
Well, we already had the working group that's made the recommendation.
That's fine. Well, that's fine. I don't care. I mean, I'm trying to look for a way of moving things on. when we've got a technology problem, anyone who is on the working group is welcome to join that. So the working group, any member of the working group, plus the list that we've just been through then, it's been moved and seconded. It was moved by me. It was seconded by Tim Scandrett. I will put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no.
Aye.
That's carried. Right, thank you. We'll move on to the performance exceptions.